In 1912, the British passenger liner Titanic stood as the absolute pinnacle of maritime engineering. Measuring nearly 900 feet long and crowned with 4 towering funnels, it was widely celebrated as the greatest ship ever built. Looking at the heavy scaffolding inside the dry dock, you see the sheer mechanical ambition required to assemble a vessel of this magnitude. When it finally departed England bound for the United States, thick smoke pluming to the sky, the maiden voyage carried an air of absolute optimism. Then it vanished. Over 1,500 passengers and crew perished in the middle of the ocean. How a modern marvel of this size disappeared beneath the waves requires us to look past the romanticized myths of the disaster. The disaster was a series of physical failures that exposed the gap between the ship's perceived safety and the actual laws of buoyancy. The environment on the night of April 14th was entirely hostile, a pitch-black, freezing stretch of the Atlantic devoid of wind or moonlight. Lurking directly ahead in that pitch darkness was a massive block of ancient ice. This top-down schematic shows the ship didn't strike the iceberg head-on. As the crew tried to steer away, the ice scraped along the starboard side in a prolonged, grinding sideswipe. In this whole cross-section, the damage bypassed primary defenses. The ice peeled open thin slits across several forward compartments. The internal bulkheads didn't reach the top deck, so freezing water filled the breached sections and spilled over into the next, dragging the ship down. By compromising 5 compartments, the iceberg reached the exact threshold where the ship's internal defenses could no longer keep the bow above water. Deep in the lower decks, engineers calculated the incoming water volume. The mathematics were definitive. The vessel was going down, and nothing could stop it. This mechanical failure was compounded by a fatal oversight: lifeboats for only half the people on board. The resulting evacuation was marked by deep disorganization and class disparities. First class navigated a maze to the upper decks, while third-class passengers found their gates locked. Amid the confusion, many lifeboats were lowered less than half full. By dawn, the few who secured a seat in those boats floated alone in the vast ocean, waiting for rescue. A structural failure compromised the hull, but the lack of lifeboats meant 2/3 of the people on board had no physical way to survive. When news finally reached dry land, the public reaction was visceral shock. Headlines announced a staggering death toll on a vessel the public believed to be invincible. Crowds gathered desperately outside newspaper offices in New York, scanning bulletin boards for the names of survivors, confronting the sudden collapse of a modern marvel. Authorities immediately launched investigations on both sides of the Atlantic. The findings led to strict new maritime laws, requiring sufficient lifeboats for every passenger and 24-hour radio watches on all ships. Thousands of shipwrecks litter the ocean floor, yet the Titanic continues to command global attention over a century later. The Titanic remains at the center of public memory because it marks the exact moment where technical pride met its physical limit.